Davidson, and I'm the founder and director of the Center for Healthy Minds and the founder of Healthy Minds Innovations, our affiliated nonprofit. It's really wonderful to be with all of you today of the Center for Healthy Minds. I hope you are all doing well, and I look forward to spending this next half hour with you, mostly doing practice, which we firmly believe can be beneficial, particularly in these really difficult, challenging times. So maybe as we're beginning to gather and settle in, if you can please let us know where you're tuning in from, and maybe give us an adjective or two about how you're feeling right now. Whatever it might be, everything is welcome and okay. This is really not about changing anything right now, simply noticing whatever may be coming up. Our framework that guides much of our work and the tools that we're disseminating is a framework for understanding the plasticity of well-being. The idea that well-being is not something static, but rather actually is something that we can cultivate. And whenever we are dealing with something complex, a complex psychological characteristic like well-being, we like to identify its more core or elementary constituents. And we have developed this framework which holds that the plasticity of well-being rests on four pillars, four components of well-being. I'd like to just say briefly what those are. The first is awareness, which includes the capacity to direct attention, and we'll be specifically focused on that today since it's so fundamental. The second is connection, which is about qualities that help nourish healthy social relationships. The third is insight, which is about understanding our self, and particularly the narrative that we have about who we are. And finally, the last pillar of well-being is purpose. It's about finding our true north, our sense of direction in life, and aligning our everyday behavior with that purpose. I see people are joining in now from all over. People are reporting that they're excited, that they are interested. People from Spain, from Madison, from Chicago, people from Seattle, people reported being tired, hopeful, exhausted, frazzled. Someone tuning in from the Czech Republic, welcome. So it's great to have all of you. We're going to focus now, as we've been focusing for this entire week, on this component of well-being that has to do with awareness, and specifically our unique ability as humans to direct attention. My interest in attention goes back a long way. I first began to become acquainted with William James, America's first great psychologist, when I was in graduate school. And I worked in a hall called William James Hall. And William James was the very first professor of psychology at any American university. He was at Harvard working in the late 1800s. And in 1890, he wrote a 2-volume tome called The Principles of Psychology. And in this 2-volume tome, he has a whole chapter dedicated to attention. And he said in this chapter that the faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character, and will. And he went on to say that an education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence. And so I think that, and he later talked about this is kind of an ideal, but he doesn't really know how to do it. And I think that if William James had more connection to the contemplative traditions, he would have instantaneously seen that these provide tools for educating attention, which is what we will focus on today. Before we begin to practice, let me mention one other little factoid, which is an important one. A study was published 10 years ago that sampled more than 3,000 people across the globe using their smartphones and basically asked them 3 questions. What are you doing right now? Where is your mind right now? And how are you feeling right now? Those 3 questions. And this study found that the average adult spends 47% of her waking life not paying attention to what they're doing. 47% of the time. Folks, we could do better. So how can we do better? Let's practice. So if you all take an upright posture, sitting with our spine straight, but not too tight, not too loose. And since we are all facing our screens, if you feel comfortable, please close your eyes. And if not, it's okay to keep them open and just gaze downward. And let's begin by bringing our awareness into our bodies. And as we bring awareness into our bodies, and as our bodies begin to settle along with our mind, let's reflect on our motivation for coming together today, our motivation for engaging in this kind of practice, and recognizing that calming our mind and opening our heart is beneficial not only for ourselves, but for all of the others that we connect with directly or indirectly. So let's take a few moments at the beginning of our practice together and see if we can find this altruistic motivation for our practice. And now let's begin by exercising our faculty of attention, by bringing awareness to different parts of our body. Let's begin with our head. And the invitation is simply to notice whatever sensations may be present, may be arising, not to fixate on any of these, not to change any of these, but simply to become aware. Moving into the face, our jaw. We often store a lot of tension there. Simply noticing whatever may be present right now. Our neck, our shoulders. Moving awareness into our arms, our wrists, our hands, and our fingers. Sweeping awareness into our chest, our torso, both the front and the back. Bringing awareness into our sit bones, noticing the sensations as we're sitting. Bringing awareness to our legs, our thighs, our knees, our shins, our ankles, our feet and toes. Infusing our whole body with awareness. And again, no need to fixate or to change anything. Simply becoming aware. We are exercising the extraordinary capacity of the human mind and brain to voluntarily deploy its own attention. This is something so important, particularly in today's world, where our attention is constantly being grabbed, hijacked by one thing or another in our environment. And this is an invitation and an exercise to strengthen our, what we call in more technical terms, our endogenous capacity to voluntarily regulate our attention. And what that simply means is our capacity to direct our mind, rather than leaving our mind willy-nilly to be hijacked by circumstances and forces around us over which we have no control. Let's expand our sphere of awareness to now include all of the information which is coming through each of our senses, beginning with sound. Bringing awareness to whatever sounds may be present in your environment. Bringing awareness to any visual impressions, even if your eyes are closed. We see things even with our eyes closed. And simply bringing these into our awareness. Opening all of our channels. Bringing awareness to any touch sensations we might be feeling. Bringing awareness to any smells and tastes. Opening all of our sense doors, fully open. Fully aware and completely awake. And simply noticing whatever might be present. And what we are doing now is broadening the aperture of awareness or attention. We are becoming like a wide-angle lens bringing more and more of our sensations into awareness. And if you find that your mind is lost, that your mind has wandered, gently bring it back to the present moment, whatever that moment is. Resting in this spacious, open quality of awareness. And let's now broaden our sphere of awareness even more. Becoming aware of the space around us. We are surrounded by space in front of us, in back, on the sides, above us, as well as below us. See if you can broaden your awareness to include the space around you. And if thoughts arise, that's perfectly fine. Our minds create thoughts. It's what our minds do. And see if you can see the thoughts in the same way you might see a cloud in the sky, arising and moving along and eventually disappearing. No need to follow the thought, get caught up in it. Simply being aware of it. So our aperture for attention or awareness is now broadened even further as we include the space around us as part of our awareness. And again, if the mind becomes distracted, once you recognize that it has been lost, gently bring it back to the present moment. And whenever your mind is lost and you notice that it's been lost, that is actually a moment of recognition, a wonderful moment, and provides an opportunity to strengthen your capacity to regulate your attention. Now, as we begin to transition out of this period of formal practice, before we do, let us collectively reflect on how we can bring whatever insight, whatever benefit we may have gleaned from our time together in practice, and how we can bring it out into the world, particularly for the benefit of others. So let's reflect on how the quality of awareness, the quality of presence that we're cultivating here today might be of some benefit to others. And how can we remind ourselves to remain aware, to recognize that this quality of awareness is with us all the time. Yet, much of the time, we're so distracted by what's going on externally that we simply don't recognize it. And so these practices can be enormously helpful in facilitating the more spontaneous recognition of this quality of awareness that we always have. So as we transition from this period of practice, for those whose eyes have been closed, please open them as we re-engage. And as you open your eyes, see if you can retain the same quality of awareness that was present during this practice, and bring it into your everyday activities. And I invite you, as we're coming out of this period of practice, to use the chat window and tell us how you're feeling now. Is there one or two adjectives that you can type in to reflect the quality of your mind right now? I want to remind all of you that these practices, similar to what we just did together now, as well as practices in all of the 4 pillars of well-being, awareness, connection, insight, and purpose, can be found on our app, the Healthy Minds Program. This app is freely available throughout the world due to the generosity of our donors. You can learn more about this app by going to tryhealthyminds.org, which has been placed in the chat window. We encourage all of you who are interested in establishing a daily practice or sustaining a practice, please try the app, see if it might be helpful in encouraging regularity of practice, which is so important. Words are coming in, radiating energy, calm, settled, centered, prioritizing low stress. Wonderful. Well, I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to share this practice with you today. It's particularly important in this time of the pandemic and also of the extraordinary injustice and inequity that we're seeing so dramatically in the U.S. today, as well as all over the world. These practices, I think, can be very helpful, and I encourage you to please try them. So thank you all so much. I wish you a good day, a good evening, wherever you might be, and I look forward to joining you again. And please check out our website for other practices that we offer, including a practice in Spanish led by our collaborator and colleague, Daniela Labro from Mexico. So thank you all so much, and may you all be safe and healthy and well. Thank you.